All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling AI and copyright,
Ooh,
which is something that I think is on a lot of people's minds these days.
that's a hot topic.
It really is, yeah.
Sure.
And we are diving deep into a new report from the U.S. Copyright Office, all about AI-generated images,
Yeah.
which is something I think is particularly fascinating because the technology is really exploding right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So think of it as like a cheat sheet for navigating this new world,
Right.
especially if you are using AI tools in your work.
Yeah, it's a good place to start and to kind of wrap your head around the issues involved.
Totally. And this report is from January 29th, 2025. So it's
Brand new.
brand new, yeah.
Hot off the presses.
So no more beating around the bush. Let's get to the heart of it.
Okay.
If there's one thing our listeners should know,
Yeah.
what is it?
One thing I would say the big takeaway is that the Copyright Office is crystal clear that AI-generated content on its own is not copyrightable. So just typing a prompt.
So just like typing a prompt into Midjourney.
Exactly. Into Midjourney or Delay or any of these
Yeah.
does not automatically give you ownership.
Okay, so that settles that then.
Right.
But then where does the human element come in?
Right.
What is meaningful human creative input?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. And the
Yeah.
report dives into some fascinating case studies
Okay.
to illustrate this point. And one that I thought was really interesting was the case of Randy Travis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So for those who don't know, he's a country music legend
Oh, yeah, I know who he is.
who suffered a stroke several years ago.
Right.
And as a result, he lost the ability to sing,
Wow.
but he used AI to recreate his voice for new music.
Oh, wow. So AI was like basically singing for him.
Yeah, in a sense.
It's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And the Copyright Office actually granted copyright protection in this case.
They did.
They did.
I mean, I can see why that would raise some eyebrows.
Right.
Like, wait a minute.
Right.
But what was the reasoning behind that?
The key here is that they saw the AI as a tool, like a very advanced instrument,
Great.
guided by Randy Travis and his team's artistic choices.
So it wasn't that the AI was just like, here's a Randy Travis song. It's that they were using the AI to do something that he was guiding.
It was a collaborative process.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not about banning AI from the creative process.
Right.
It's about making sure that there's still that human creativity element,
That's right.
which makes me wonder, how does that work with like visual art?
Well, the report also addresses that as well. And
sure.
they looked at a case involving an artist named Chris Castanova,
Okay.
and she used AI to enhance a hand-drawn image.
Okay.
So she took, ran her sketch through Stable Diffusion
Right.
to make it more photorealistic.
Okay, so she used the AI for part of the process, not the entire thing.
Exactly.
So did she get copyright for that?
She did, but with a twist.
Ooh, I like twists.
So the Copyright Office granted protection only for the human-created elements,
Okay.
her original lines and composition.
Got it.
The AI-generated details were not covered.
So that's really interesting. So if somebody were to use her artwork, they'd have to very carefully like tiptoe around the copyright lines, literally.
It gets even trickier when we start looking at things like Midjourney's in-painting feature.
Oh, yeah. Midjourney's in painting. Okay.
Where you can regenerate areas of an AI-generated image with new prompts.
So I could create like a landscape and then be like, okay, now I want a hot air balloon right there. And it would do it.
Precisely.
And then I could be like, and I want dancing flamingos.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
But here's the catch.
Okay.
The Copyright Office is saying maybe it's copyrightable, maybe not.
Oh, so even they're like,
It all depends on the level of human input
okay.
during that in-painting process.
So there's a theme emerging here. Using AI as a tool, probably okay.
Right.
AI doing all the work, not okay.
Right.
But how do you know?
How much is enough?
Yeah. How much is enough? Where's the line?
That's what's so tricky about this is that the report doesn't give us hard and fast rules.
Right.
It emphasizes that each case needs to be evaluated individually.
Okay.
And this brings up another really interesting point,
Go,
which
go.
is the burden of proof.
The burden of proof. What is that?
So what that means is as AI gets more sophisticated,
Right.
creators might have to prove that their work wasn't generated by a machine.
Oh. So I'm going to have to like stand in a courtroom and be like, I swear I didn't use AI.
Well, I mean, it's not quite that dramatic, but the
Okay.
concern is real. Like,
Yeah.
imagine having to show every layer of your Photoshop file
Right.
or like time-stamped progress photos of your painting.
Okay, so that's a headache I wasn't anticipating.
Right.
Like, how do you even, yeah.
How do you prove that something wasn't made with AI?
Yeah, and especially if this AI is getting so good that you can't even tell the difference.
Exactly.
Wow, this is feeling less like the Wild West and more like just a legal maze that you have to navigate.
It's definitely complicated. But before we get too discouraged,
Okay.
the Copyright Office does recognize that technology is evolving rapidly
Yeah.
and that these guidelines aren't set in stone.
So it's kind of like the early days of photography or digital music.
Exactly.
We'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah, right.
It just takes time for the law to catch up.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that is reassuring.
Yeah.
So for our listeners out there who are maybe feeling a little overwhelmed at this point, what would you say is the main takeaway that you want them to remember?
I think the main takeaway is if you're using AI as a tool to enhance your own creativity,
Okay.
for inspiration, to explore new ideas, or even just, speed,
Yeah.
copyright law is likely still on your side.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to experiment, but do your homework
Okay.
and stay informed.
I like that. Informed experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a brave new world, but it doesn't have to be a scary one. Now, remember that thought-provoking question we mentioned earlier about like someone training an AI on a specific artist's style?
Oh, yeah. The report dives into that headfirst with what they call the Araminta scenario.
The Araminta scenario.
That's a real doozy.
Well, listeners, you'll have to stay tuned to hear all about Araminta
Mm-hmm.
and the copyright quandaries that she brings to the table, because we're just getting started.
We are just getting started.
Yeah.
That's right. This Araminta scenario, as the report calls it, really throws a wrench into the whole copyright discussion.
Okay.
So imagine an artist, Araminta,
Okay.
who has this incredibly unique, recognizable style.
So like those whimsical creatures that we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. Big eyes, swirling patterns, totally one of a kind, right?
Yeah.
So someone comes along and creates an AI model,
Okay.
trained specifically on Araminta's artwork,
Wow.
hundreds of her pieces, all fed into this AI, teaching it to create in her style.
Okay, so now anybody can just type in a prompt and get a fake Araminta.
Basically, yeah. And that's okay.
Well, that's the ethical dilemma
Right.
that this scenario raises.
Yeah.
And the report acknowledges that.
Okay.
But as of right now, the person who created that AI model
Right.
wouldn't necessarily own the copyright to the output.
Okay, so Araminta couldn't sue them for copyright infringement?
It's not that clear-cut.
Okay.
The report suggests that this kind of situation might require legal frameworks
Okay.
that go beyond traditional copyright.
Interesting.
Araminta could argue that her unique style is a form of intellectual property
Right.
that's being stolen, even if no specific artwork is being directly copied.
So it brings up a really interesting point of is style copyrightable?
Right.
And as of right now, I guess we don't know.
We don't really know.
But this Araminta scenario is really kind of pushing the boundaries.
It is.
Yeah. So while there's no easy answer right now, this Araminta scenario really highlights how AI is pushing the boundaries of what copyright can even cover. Absolutely. And it's a good reminder that while experimenting with AI is encouraged,
Yeah,
being aware of these evolving complexities is crucial.
it is.
And speaking of things that are complex, this whole idea of the burden of proof,
Right.
it gets even more intricate as these AI tools become more sophisticated.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
For those of us just joining us, can you remind us what that whole burden of proof thing is about?
Sure. So it's the idea that in the future,
Yeah.
with AI-generated content becoming more and more prevalent,
Right.
copyright applicants might actually need to prove that their work wasn't created by a machine.
So, how do you even...
It's like having to prove a negative.
Yeah, and especially if those AI tools are getting so good that it's hard to tell the difference.
Exactly. That's the concern.
Yeah.
And the report doesn't offer any easy solutions for this.
Right.
Imagine a scenario where you as an artist have to document every single step of your creative process,
Wow.
just in case someone accuses you of using AI.
So it's almost like we're all going to need, creative alibis
Right.
to prove that our work is authentically human.
It's a legitimate worry.
It is a worry, yeah.
And while the report doesn't offer any easy answers, it does make one thing clear.
Okay.
The Copyright Office knows it needs to adapt to this rapidly changing technological landscape.
Yeah.
What's considered copyrightable today might not be tomorrow.
So we're all just on this roller coaster ride,
Yeah.
clinging on for dear life as the legal landscape shifts beneath us.
Yeah, in a way.
I mean, it's not all doom and gloom, right?
Yeah, it's not all doom and gloom.
We've been through similar upheavals before.
Exactly.
Introduction of photography,
Right.
the rise of digital music, These all shook up the copyright world,
Absolutely.
and we figured it out.
We adapted,
Or-
we learned, we created new rules, and the creative world kept spinning.
Yeah. Okay, that's actually really encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reminder that while things are uncertain right now,
Right.
they won't stay that way forever.
Exactly.
So as we navigate this uncharted territory, what would you say is the most important thing for our listeners to keep in mind?
I think the most important thing to remember is don't let the uncertainty paralyze you.
Okay.
The Copyright Office is still very much on the side of human creators.
Good.
If you are using AI as a tool to enhance your own artistic vision,
Mhm.
to explore new ideas, to push the boundaries of your craft,
Yeah.
copyright protection is likely still within your reach.
So it's all about staying informed, staying creative,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe having a good lawyer on speed dial.
That never hurts.
That never hurts.
But seriously, this is a very dynamic situation.
Right.
We're all learning as we go.
Yeah.
The report is a great starting point, but the conversation is far from over.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for, to keep
Yeah.
that conversation going.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground today,
Mm-hmm.
and I imagine our listeners have a lot to mull over. But before we wrap things up, I do want to come back to that point that we touched on earlier
Okay.
about AI being trained on a specific artist's style.
Ah, yes, the Araminta scenario.
That's where things get really interesting.
Other things get really interesting.
What happens when an AI can mimic not just any style, but your specific, artistic fingerprint?
Yeah, it's a question that goes way beyond copyright.
It does.
It makes us think about like the very essence of creativity, originality,
Right.
and what it means to be an artist in a world where machines can seemingly replicate anything.
I'm honestly not sure how we would feel about that.
Right.
On the one hand, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Right.
But on the other hand, if a machine could perfectly replicate my creative output, wouldn't that make my own work feel somehow less special?
That's a question that every artist, musician, writer, any creative person is going to have to grapple with in the coming years.
Absolutely.
It forces us to confront some really fundamental questions about the nature of creativity and originality. Yeah.
And it's not a conversation with easy answers.
No, it's not.
It's a dialogue that needs to happen not just in the legal world,
Yeah.
but in the creative community as a whole.
I couldn't agree more.
So as we leave our listeners to ponder this very weighty topic,
Mm-hmm.
I want to offer one final thought.
Okay.
This is a time of immense change,
Yeah.
but also a time of incredible possibility.
I like that.
AI tools can unlock new creative potential,
Yeah.
expand our artistic horizons,
Yeah.
and even challenge us to think differently about what it means to be human.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah,
It's not about fearing the future, it's about embracing it
exactly.
with curiosity and a willingness to adapt.
Precisely. And who knows, maybe this is just the beginning of a whole new era of creative expression.
Wow, okay.
One where humans and AI collaborate in
Yeah.
ways we can't even imagine yet.
Now that's a future I'm excited to be a part of.
Me too.
And for our listeners who want to delve deeper into the Copyright Office's perspective on all of this.
You can find a link to their full report in our show notes.
Yeah.
It's dense, but it's worth the read.
It's a great resource for anyone who wants to stay informed
Yeah,
and be part of this ongoing conversation.
absolutely.
All right.
Well, it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, this is just the beginning of the discussion.
That's right.
We'll be back with more fascinating topics, more expert insights,
Mm-hmm.
and more thought-provoking questions.
Until then, keep creating, keep exploring,
Yeah.
keep those creative sparks flying.
See you next time. All right, so we're back and ready to kind of wrap up our deep dive into this whole AI and copyright world.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of information, a lot of thought-provoking scenarios.
Definitely.
So let's try to distill this all down.
Yeah.
If our listener is walking away with just a couple key things, what would they be?
Yeah, I think the most important takeaway is don't panic.
Okay.
The rise of AI in the creative world doesn't mean the end of human artistry. If you're using AI as a tool to enhance your own creativity, to explore new ideas, or even, just to streamline your workflow, copyright law is likely still on your side.
Yeah, it's not about shunning these new technologies altogether.
Right.
It's about figuring out how do we use them responsibly, ethically,
Exactly.
while staying true to our own, artistic visions.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like, the Copyright Office is kind of encouraging that kind of mindful exploration.
They are. They recognize that AI is here to stay.
Right.
And they seem to be taking a very nuanced approach to navigating these uncharted waters.
It does feel like uncharted waters.
It does.
And what's considered copyrightable today might not be tomorrow.
Exactly. So staying informed is crucial.
It is. It's like we almost need like a subscription service.
Right.
Like Copyright News you can use, like Copyright Weekly.
But seriously, how
Yeah.
can our listeners stay ahead of the curve on this? Well, I think keeping an eye on publications from the Copyright Office is a good start. They are putting out resources and updates as they grapple with these new technologies.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll be here to help you make sense of it all as the landscape continues to shift.
We'll do our best. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all in this together.
We are.
Now, before we sign off, I do want to come back to that Araminta scenario that we keep bringing up.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about like the legality of AI mimicking an artist's style, but it's the philosophical implications too, right?
It is.
Like what happens when someone creates an AI that can like generate music in your distinct style
Yeah.
or like write poems that sound exactly like you?
Yeah. Does that diminish your originality? Does
Yeah.
it feel like a violation?
I'm honestly not sure how I would feel about that.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, on the one hand, they say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Right.
But on the other hand, if a machine could just perfectly replicate my creative output, wouldn't that make my own work feel somehow less special?
It's a question that I think every artist, musician, writer, every creative person is going to have to grapple with in the coming years.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront some really fundamental questions about the nature of creativity and originality.
And it's not a conversation with easy answers.
No, it's not.
It's a dialogue that needs to happen not just in the legal world, but in the creative community as a whole.
Exactly.
So as we leave our listeners to ponder this very weighty topic,
Yeah.
any final thoughts before we sign off?
Yeah, I think, this is a time of immense change, but also a time of incredible possibility.
Okay.
AI tools can unlock new creative potential, they can expand our artistic horizons, and even challenge us to think differently about what it means to be human.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's not about fearing the future, but embracing it
Exactly.
with curiosity and a willingness to adapt.
Exactly. And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe this is just the beginning of a whole new era of creative expression.
Ooh, I like that.
One where humans and AI collaborate in ways that we can't even imagine yet.
That's a future I'm excited to be a part of.
Me too.
And for our listeners who want to really delve deep into the Copyright Office's perspective on all of this, you can find a link to their full report in our show notes.
It is dense.
It is dense.
But it is worth the read.
It's worth it. It's fascinating stuff.
It is.
Well, on that note,
Yeah.
it's time to wrap up this deep dive. But remember,
Yeah.
this is just the beginning of the discussion.
That's right.
We'll be back with more fascinating topics.
Yes, we will.
More expert insights and more thought-provoking questions.
Absolutely. Until then,
Until then,
keep creating, keep exploring.
keep those creative sparks flying.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.